Ended up recommending city council, but won't be decided until next month.
Fighting the battle.
Yeah.
I want to try. It's called work.
Well, sir, how are you?
Hey,
I'm Roger Roberts.
Yeah.
We go to the ridge.
Neutrophil is out.
Tiffany and Russ. And we knew.
Are you renting down or where did you used to live in the Midwest?
Yeah, near. Central Ohio.
So how long have you been here?
10 years.
I didn't hear when you had your
Well, we did visit for quite a few years. But then the babies started happening, so we started making trips back and forth. And then we just decided to come out. We have some family on the side.
Leave that into my.
So we found a family out here, which was a good decision. I don't know. Some of us here in Texas,
But they're the ones that have the short trips.
they had some.
It became the element of the United States. We were helping them there. Yes. We're gonna maybe get, I'm gonna go over one more. The board has. Oh, I don't know.
Not gonna take one.
Well, no.
Well, she had on the.
They do that. I don't know. It was like. It's not very nice. It's like not very cool. Then you go understand.
Yeah. That's February.
Yeah.
My dad. He's the new trade all but green is real life. He's just one. That's all. You know. I did not. Yeah. Yeah. I did not see it. it out. Although that is.
So in system.
Yes.
I don't want to.
Real good.
Okay. These are. You've got Harvard students, Bill Bodley, Curly Harris, Larry Hampton, McCoy, Patricia, Ardado, and Rick Skew. I sat down everybody. Please, Patty, and
Got a year.
he got it. They all got it.
Ron?
Yes.
I think I got some indication from this was the guy judge's run. And what's the first?
Blair talked about his career as a Navy commander on nuclear submarine.
Oh, I didn't even know about it.
Just so you
It was
know,
awesome.
it's been recorded. It's on a YouTube channel. When I send out the link for this YouTube one, it will be on that YouTube channel and you can watch.
I think we gotta move you forward. That's, otherwise you're gonna be,
It's very informative.
you're gonna be making noise over the caverns down there.
He's gonna knock on your door.
Is that enough? Is that enough? Okay. You'll just have to kind of stay up this way a little bit.
This.
Okay.
Well, welcome to our second installment of My Story.
We have a date.
For those of you who are here for the first time, we did one of these a couple of months ago, and we had Brother Blair talk to us about his military career as a naval submarine commander. And it was awesome to be able to get to know him and his background. And when we asked if you wanted to have more of this, everyone said, yes, let's have them every month. We're not going to do them every month, but we will get in maybe every second or third month. We wanted to try and cram one in before the holidays were too much upon us. I apologize for not promoting this a little bit better. There have been several emails, but I know some of you don't get the emails if they go through the church system. But we'll try and fix it. Don't fall down in the catacombs there. But so this is installment number 2 with Brother Barron tonight. And I've been very anxious to hear more about his story. I've heard little bits and pieces, mostly from other people, about Brother Barron and his younger days and experiences during World War II as a young man. And so he's going to share some of those insights and how the gospel made a difference for him in his life. And we'll always tie it back into that, of course. We have lots of people in our ward that have very interesting stories. I have a list of about 8 or 10 different people that we want to invite to do one of these at some time or another as we go, as we go forward. So welcome to installment 2. And we'll probably pick up again maybe in January sometime with another opportunity to hear from someone else as we go along. Thank you for being here. We will have some refreshments in the kitchen afterwards. And this is Elders Quorum sponsored, so do not expect doilies or centerpieces, or fancy silverware, or any of those kinds of things. It will be very good. Your plate will be a napkin, a white napkin, and you can pick your favorite cookie out of the 5 dozen or so that are back there, or your favorite cookies. It can be plural. There's plenty. But as long as they're Elders Quorum sponsored, we'll dispense with the formalities and the fancy foo-foo stuff that goes along with Relief Society sponsoring these things. So without taking any more time, we've asked Brother Hales to give us an opening prayer here tonight. Will you also bless the food? Because when we're done, we'll just kind of adjourn and go back and have some refreshments at that point in time. Okay?
Our dear kind, eternal Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the many blessings which thou hast blessed us with on this day. Particularly, we're thankful for the freedoms which we have. We're so grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ in our lives. We're grateful for the many, many blessings. We ask thee to bless us and that we might gain something from this evening, and bless Graham that he might be comfortable in giving us what we need to have. We ask thee to bless the refreshments and be with us at all times. We ask humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, just one or two more things. I forgot to welcome all of our people on Zoom. Welcome. That we have about a dozen people that are with us on Zoom tonight. And for your information, Brother Zabriskie has been is recording these, and we have a YouTube channel that he's posting these to. So for those who don't get a chance to see, or you want to share it with somebody, or if you missed the first one and you wanted to go back and see it, he'll send out a link.
I'll send the link, but if you want to get it sooner, just search in the little search thing with the little question, or the search thing up at the top of YouTube. Look for Santa Clara, Utah 2nd Ward, and it will come up. You'll find it. You'll see the Brother Blair's picture will be there. You'll find him.
Okay, so that's
Then I will send out a link.
so that's something that can be shared if you know people that would like to see, or if you wanted to go back and hear what Brother Blair had to say. Then it's available to you. I likewise would like to thank all of our veterans that are in here tonight for your service. And my wife is up north with her dad, who's 97 years old, and the sisters like to get there. She comes from a family of 6 girls, and they like to get together and take her dad out on Veterans Day. He likes to take advantage of that. He had his free lunch at Chili's, and he's got his future dinner at Texas Roadhouse, and he had lunch, breakfast somewhere else. But they also went down to the Orem Temple open house today, so he's had a full day. So again, thanks to all of our veterans. For those of you in Elders Quorum, we're going to recognize our veterans that are in our ward, and those who are currently serving. Brother Evans is currently serving in the military. And we're going to be doing that tomorrow in the opening of our priesthood. We have a little gift for you. And we'll have a presentation that we'll do in the first few minutes of our quorum meeting tomorrow. And I apologize in advance if we missed a few. We tried to make sure that we got everybody, but there could be somebody that was missed. So don't be mad, hopefully. With that, Graham, let's turn the time over to you and take us through your life.
want to thank everyone for being here this evening, and you folks on Zoom. We hope that you have an enjoyable time and you can understand what I'm going to be going through with you. I got a call just yesterday from our son, and he says, Dad, I was telling him that I would be giving my life story today. And he says, no, you're not going to be abolishing that, are you? Or embellishing it, however the words said. And I said, I'm your dad, you know, I wouldn't do anything like that. So warning ahead, there may be a few little things here and there that are kind of flowered a little bit. But I'm going to try and keep it 99.99% true. I realized when I said, okay, I'd like to do this, that I'm really opening myself up to my wife. She's probably going to learn some things about Graham that maybe she didn't know. So we've been married 50 some odd years, so let's stay in it. 55. Well, I'll get going here without any further ado. I started life out in a place up in the northeastern part of England. It was kind of a long address to it, so I'm just going to run quickly through that, and then we'll be rolling into the war and things that happened then. I lived on Gorsey Farm Cottage, Gorsey Lane, Ashton-under-Lyne, Lancashire, England. So quite an address to have to write down, you know. This town that I lived in, Ashton, primarily was a textile town. A lot of textile mills and factories. They, you know, created a lot of fabric. In towards the end of 1939, these factories were all turned into wartime production, making uniforms, ammunition, things that pertain to the war that would help England in its fight to conquer our friend Hitler. I'll be real nice about him. So for me, life started off kind of rough. And there might be a Valentine moment, so I've got tissues here. When my mother was ready to give birth, it just so happened that her doctor was out of town and unavailable. So the intern who was standing in had to go forward with the procedure. Sadly enough, it reached a point where do we save the mother and let the child die? Or do we save the child and lose the mother? And this all came about by what I understand. She had just been given too much anesthetic, rendered her, of course, unconscious, and her heart stopped through this process. And so, as you can see, the decision was made that Mom would go and I would get to live. Now, I like to throw, at this point, I like to throw a little what if at you. We all know the age of accountability is 8. Is that right? Yes, it is. So, what if they decided to save my mom and let me pass away? Fully mature child or baby. I'm here. I may have taken a whisper of this life, and then I'm gone. So that should have given me a ticket to the celestial kingdom. It's a little overwhelming to know that I came that close. But it's also so grateful that we have a kind and loving Heavenly Father, because He's given Graham a second chance. And with this chance, I was able to be married, have a family of our own, and go through all the steps that it takes, hopefully, to get to that celestial kingdom. So here we are. War really broke out big starting in 1940. As I say, because I lived in a bit of an industrial type town, we became a target. When most of the German bombers would come over, they'd swing across the English Channel over France and across 21 miles of water, the English Channel. And London would be their prime target. So they would bomb the daylights out of London. And for the first 2 or 3 years where I lived, we were pretty safe, even though there were factories there. I think Hitler had a dull moment and he kind of overlooked our area. But in 1943, I was 3 years old at this time. So I'm a baby. So a lot of this first part that I tell you is what my auntie and my father, relayed to me. It was about the 13th of December, 1943. And that day, my parents tell me that they felt very uneasy, restless, knots in the stomach, just very, very anxious. And I guess I should say just before this, my father and this lady right here were the only two members in our family that were members of the church. However, they did have an older brother and sister that came years before the war to America. They were members. So anyway, my father said that gathered my grandparents together, and my auntie and another uncle and dad, and they all decided that let's have a little fast. And so they did. They fasted and they prayed most of that day that they would be spared, that hopefully Heavenly Father would be aware of the circumstances around and that He would preserve us. And so around 11 o'clock, the evening of the 13th, the sirens went off. And when those sirens sounded, everyone must be off the streets, either in the fire shelters or in their homes. All your blinds must be pulled down or your windows blacked out. No lights on the inside of the house. And you could maybe have a candle if it was in a location where it really couldn't be seen. And I'm sure from where the planes were, they wouldn't see a candle anyway. But the good old Brits, they didn't want to take a chance. So we stuck to them rules. And so, as I say, around 11 o'clock, we heard this droning sound, which you would hear the engines of the bombers coming over. What would happen? They would bomb London. And by this time, they had just enough fuel to loop around where we lived in that area and back across the channel. If they had any arsenal on the plane at that time, we were the ones that would be getting it. And that happened. Were 3 or 4 planes. It sounded like 2 of them broke off, one to the south side of the house and one to the north side of the house. We would call them whistlers. When the bomb would be released, you'd hear this sound and then a brief silence and then the explosion. This happened on the north side, and the shrapnel from that bomb shredded every window in our house, blew all the windows out. There were pieces of metal embedded in the stone of the house outside from this bomb. And our homes at that time, they were all built out of stone, had slate roofs, so they were pretty rugged houses. Then, of course, the one landed on the other side of the house, and we got the same percussion there. Well, the air was sucked in through these windows, and as a result, all of a sudden the chimneys, and we had 3 chimneys in this house, because that's what we use fireplaces to heat with, a coal burning cook stove to cook on. And so when this air was sucked in, all of a sudden the chimneys was blown into the rooms. We were in the kitchen, which was kind of the center part of the house. And here again, I'm a 3-year-old child. They were mothering me, keeping me pretty safe. But the candle blew out. Luckily, we had a flashlight, and that came on eventually, and the set settled. And we all looked like a bunch of colored folk. We had this black soot all over us. And so the big task starts now to clean up and get some boarding on the windows. It's wintertime, it's cold, and up where we were, we'd get snow. And so that was a big process, and took some time to take care of that problem. During all this time, you've all seen, shorts on the news of Ukraine and of what's going on in Israel and Palestine down through the Gaza Strip. If you look in the eyes or in those faces, you would always see a very worried look, tired, exhausted, just on edge, unable to sleep, unable to eat properly. And at this time, everything, of course, went towards the war. And so food was pretty scarce, and everything was rationed. We had a coupon book, and you go down to the area designated for produce or different groceries, and you'd stand in line there for hours and hope and pray that by the time you got inside that there'd be something there to purchase. So what we would do through the summer, fall, well, I should say spring and summer months, my granddaddy had a kind of a green thumb. We would put in a garden and try and, get as much produce as we possibly could. That time there was no refrigeration. We would have a ice box and the iceman would come with his horse and wagon with these blocks of ice. And of course, you purchase a block of ice, put it in this ice box, and that's where you preserve your meats and milk and things that needed some refrigeration. Also, as I mentioned, we heated with coal, so the same process there. There'd be the coal master, he'd have his wagon and horse drawn carriage or wagon, and we'd have these 100-pound gunny sacks of coal. The reason I say this is this evening when we got bombed, and by the way, yes, I'm standing here, so the Lord certainly answered our prayers. My family were, other than the ones that had joined the church, were Methodist, but they still had a strong belief in our Heavenly Father, and He certainly got us through that hard time. So I had mentioned that I had an aunt and an uncle that had come to the United States years before the war took place. And every now and again, when the mail would get through, which was not on a regular basis, we would get a care package from America here. And we happened to get one on this December that we got bombed, because we had no real Christmas. We were just lucky to be alive and have something to eat. And generally, Sunday would be the one day of the month when we would have a decent meal, some potatoes, a vegetable, a little bit of meat. And that would have to put us through until the following Sunday, hopefully. So when we got this care package from America, it had some spam in it. And I hadn't had much spam up to this point, so wow, spam's pretty good. And then we, of course, hot cocoa and some biscuits, and even threw in a couple of comic books, a couple of Western comic books, Roy Rogers, Red Rider, the Lone Ranger, that sort of thing. And here, like I say, I'm only 3, but I had started to kind of develop an interest for the cowboy. And so we got through all this bombing business, and the next couple of years were kind of nerve-wracking, but we survived them. I can only tell you, in real life, you're really scared to death. You just hear the drone of those planes going over, and you wonder, is one of them going to drop a bomb right on us? You pray, pray that won't happen. And we did, of course. And so the war finally came to an end. At this point, it had been decided by the folks here in the States that my grandparents should come to America. By the way, the pictures here, these 2 folks that you see here are my grandmother and grandfather, Barron, on my father's side. And this lady over here somewhere, there she is. This one, I have a great love for this lady. And I'll tell you why in just a few seconds here. Grab myself. She was a good friend of my mother's. They were best friends. Did quite a lot of things together socially. And so when my mother passed away, it comes up, who's going to take care of Graham? This little baby, he's got to have a mother in his life. And so my mom's sister, who was married and had a couple of children, said, I want Graham, I'll take him. Well, because of the circumstances of my birth, I was born what they call a blue baby, which means without oxygen for a period of time. And because of that, you can see why I am the way I am. A little loony. But anyway, I lasted about 2 months with her, and I was colicky and restless and couldn't settle me down. I didn't eat properly and all these things. So this dear lady right here, who is my father's youngest sister, in fact. So she kind of took over along with my grandparents, and they raised me up. Again, now as the end of the war came, paperwork was all put in place, and we were able to get my grandparents over here to the States to live with their oldest daughter in a place called Duval, Washington, in Washington State. Interesting thing, when these folks came here, they left England on September 15th, 1946, just a year after the war was over. At that time, in England, they were the oldest couple to ever leave the country and fly and start a new life here in America. My grandmother was 81 and my grandfather was 84. So I think if you stop and think a moment here, you've lived your whole life in this area. You've got through the war. You've raised your family. You're well known in the community. In fact, he was a clog maker. You may have seen clogging on a show, where they dance and rattle their feet around. He was one of the guys in Ashton there that you would go to if you wanted a good set of clogs. So they lost their clogger. He also was a bird man. He raised goldfinches, which is a bird similar to a canary, but they're kind of blue, white, gray in color. They've got quite a throat. They can sing and twirl and tribble and all this stuff. And he became one of the top guys in town raising these type of birds. And people would come to him to purchase the eggs, and really left a little mark. So he was pretty well known in the community, but he was willing to give that up and come to America. When this happened, we sold the house in England, up in Ashton there, and I maybe we even gave it away by now, but I've got a little picture here that I'll pass around so you can get a little idea what the place looked like. Interesting note about this house is it was built in 1766. So it when I was born, it was 173 years old. And yes, of course, Brother Labasco had flown over to England several times and done remodeling, and so it was still standing. So if it's okay, I'd like to just start this down one side, and you can just take a peek at it. And that's where we lived. And as you look at those windows, they were all gone.
Was it just a one family house?
Yes, but it was the Barron family, and some of them married, we all kind of got our start there and then left from that house and went our different ways. Okay, so the house is gone. Now Aunt Marion and myself, we went to London to live in an apartment with my father and his second wife and 2 children. And there was a big decision made here. We had a good part of the family here in the States by now, grandparents and aunts and uncles. And so it was decided that England is still in a mess. I mean, as we lived in London there were still bombed out buildings, and, the place was still being cleaned up. And so my dad and his sister, my aunt here, got together and had a conversation with our folks here in the States. And they decided that Marion and I should come to America and be with our grandparents, and that America was the place that Graham needed to be. I would have a fair chance at life here in America. Better schooling, my education, just life in general would be just so much better. And the decision was made, that's what we'll do. Well, it became a problem. Graham became the problem. The law was that a child could not leave the country unless he or she was accompanied by a legal parent, father, mother. My dad, he was kind of tied up with his second wife and raising these other 2 children, half brother and sister. And so he still felt that he needed Graham to go to America. So what happened was we took out adoption papers, he did, and he made Marion my legal mother by adoption. By doing that, it freed me up to come to America. And so on December 18th, 1947, my auntie and I boarded a plane and we flew across the ocean, landed in Seattle-Tacoma, Washington on the 18th of December. And that was quite a moment for the both of us. And that's what this other picture here shows, is my stepmom and me coming off the plane, or just getting off the plane in Seattle. I'd like to pass that around if I may. And if you look on the back here, it shows a few little pictures of Graham and his cowboy outfit. And yeah, just a quickie on when we did get to America. I had lived, of course, with aunt and uncle, my grandparents. And my aunt there, she had a son and a daughter. And the son was about 4 years older than me. We had a 10-acre farm out in the country. They raised poultry. And they also had a small nursing home built, which housed about 10 to 12 patients. And my aunt was a registered nurse, so she kind of managed that part of it. Okay, well, I'm here in America now. This is the land of the cowboys and the Indians. And holy cow, I guess I'm going out in the country where probably some Indians out there, they're looking for my scalp. So we my aunt and uncle picked us up from the airport. We traveled some 35 miles out to Duval, Washington, where we lived. And on the way, we stopped in the little town to the country store. And of course, everything's decorated for Christmas. And we went into this little general store, and my aunt and uncle were good friends with the owners of that. And so as Aunt Marion and I entered inside the store, the owner came up to us, Mr. Hicks, and welcomed us to America. And I'm just standing there with my eyes as big as dinner plates. Just this food was just overwhelming to me. I'd never in all my life seen so much food and fruit, and there it is right in front of you, and you could literally go up and touch it. During the war, when we were rationing that, when you got into the store and you could point to what you wanted, or yes, I'd like that apple and that pear. I'd like that dozen of eggs or quart of milk, whatever it might be. And then, that would be given to you. You'd pay for it and give them your coupon. And so Mr. Hicks says to me, welcome, Graham, welcome to America. And would you like an apple? And I said, yes, sir. And he says, go ahead, go over there. And I can remember looking up at my auntie like, do I really go and touch it? And she, of course, said, yes. So I did. And I got an apple as big as my head, I think. It took me 2 days to eat that thing, but oh, it was so good. And like I say, just overwhelmed the odor of the fruit, and that I still smell that today. It was pretty touching. So anyway, we get out to the farm, and the next day, my cousin said to me, "Do you want to head up into the woods and let's cut us a Christmas tree?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to do that." He says, "Well, we got to start out pretty early in the morning." I said, "Oh," and he says, "Yeah, there's Indians up in them there woods. And, they like to come out around dusk. So if we go early, you'll be okay." And so he gives me the little hatchet and the little handsaw, and he's packing a BB gun just for show. And as we got up into the woods, I'd see these, the little mounds where some of the trees were growing. And he said, "Yeah, some of them dead Indians grew some pretty good trees, didn't they?" So it was all baloney anyway. So yeah, it was just a wonderful experience. I to this day I have great memories, even of the bad times in England. The gospel is 100% true. When we hear from the podium, from many of you and others, and from our general authorities, God is a God of love. He loves you personally. I can stand here today and testify to you that as that little kid, 3 years old, as those bombs were being dropped, we felt that protective hand of God. So for me to ever doubt the church It's not gonna happen. I will not allow that to happen. And I'm so grateful for all of you, for your testimonies, for your kindness to me and my wife. We appreciate that. And we know that that's part of what God has blessed you with. Here, had a couple of other things, but it was kind of slipping away. Actually, we did get my parents over here in, it was here again around November of 1959. Just prior to that, I'd been called into my bishop's office, and he says, Graham, what do you think about going on a mission? And I said to him, well, I would love to do that, Bishop, but right now for the past 11 years, I've been working part-time jobs and full-time and trying to save my money because I want to get my parents, my father, stepmother, and by this time, 3 siblings over here in America. And the main reason is my father has gone inactive. His wife and the 3 children are not members of the church. They rarely attend. And I want to get them over here and see that they get the gospel taught to them. And so the bishop said, well, I think if you go on your mission, the Lord will take care of that. And I said, you know, I would love to serve a stake mission for the next year till I get them here. And so we agreed to that, and I did. And as I say, in November of 59, they were able to arrive in America, and we had a house built for them, and life was beginning to be much better for them. When I left on my full-time mission in April, so I was only with them for just a few months. My companion who I had on the stake mission, he got a new companion, and the 2 of them were able to teach my family the gospel. The mother and the 3 children joined the church. My dad became active again. And so all this happened while I was out in the mission field. And getting out in the mission field, it takes some money, as we all know. And I'd pretty well blown my account getting my parents here and settled in and so on. And so, as I mentioned, we had a poultry farm, and my uncle and his cousins, they raised fryers, bird about 4 to 6 weeks of age. It'd weigh around 3 pounds, tender and pretty tasty. And every 8 weeks, these chickens had to be loaded out, sent to the market. And so he would hire in these semi-truck and trailers, and they come in with these metal crates, and the birds would have to be unloaded. This would all take place it's starting around 11 o'clock in the evening, and would usually go till around 3 or 4 in the morning. We would need a crew of at least a dozen individuals to load these birds on the crates on the trucks. The truck would be backed into the barn. The white lights would be turned off, and we had a set of blue lights, 15-watt bulbs, 15-watt blue lights. These blue lights would be on, and this would calm the birds down. They'd just kind of creep around a little bit, but they wouldn't pile up and suffocate. And, you know, there are water trays and feed cans, and these are all raised up so we can get under them. But many times a hose would come off on one of the troughs, and you'd have a puddle of water mixed in with the sawdust and that other odor thing. And so honestly, in the dust, it was a miserable, miserable job. And so my cousin went to our elders quorum president, and he said, I've got a proposition for you. If you folks could get a dozen brethren who would be willing to catch these birds for 1 year. And I put you on a contract and I'd pay you the union scale. Would you like to do that? So they agreed to it and they did. They did that for a year. At the end of that year, they had a little more money in the bank than I had, a lot more. And so here again, the elders quorum president went to the bishop, says, hey, we need a project. What can we do? And long story short, well, why don't we finance Graham on a mission? And so, thanks to their hard labor and time that they spent away from their families, my mission was financed by them. And I was really blessed because I'd had 12 months on a stake mission, kind of learned what the lessons, how they were presented at that time. So when I got into the mission field, I could take off running. So what happened, I was put with two other elders that were going to be going home in a week. So they were busy packing. I'll say that. I think I managed to convince one of them to go out with me on in the local neighborhood. First door we knocked on, it was a couple from Texas, and they had moved to New Zealand. They wanted to start a sheep ranch business, so that was an ideal spot for them. And they went from there. And anyway, as time went on, I got a real companion, and we got down to work. So that's when this Mr. Brown 6 discussions came in. So I had to learn a few things all over again. But it's been a great life so far. Like I say, I'm going to leave you with one question to ponder. And that is going to kind of involve this lady and my maternal mother. Without my mom, obviously, I wouldn't have got here in the first place. Wouldn't have been born. Yet, now I'm born, but mom's gone. What happens now? Who takes me from this point, which is really the roughest point, I think, trying to raise that baby. And this is where this lady took me right from the second month of my birth all the way through to 2000. And then she passed away in 2000, February 10th, 2000, died at the age of 94. But she clothed me, fed me, taught me, helped me with schoolwork, encouraged me. And my stepmother and dad were pressuring me from the other side to be sealed. I needed to be sealed to them. And it put me in a spot where, do I be sealed to my stepmother, my auntie, or do I get sealed to my mother, eventually stepmother and father? And so I took the question to President Harris. He was our state president at the time. And I told him just what you heard. And he said, Graham, God is God of all knowledge and all understanding. He knows exactly what this sweet woman has done. Don't you think she will be more than blessed for all the effort, time, and sacrifice that she's made? Graham, be sealed to your mom and dad. And I can promise you that God will take care of Marion. You folks will be together. You will see each other and love each other again. And so that's where it's at. And my question is, would you have done the same, or would you have done maybe something else? I thank you very much for your patience and listening to me tonight. And I know I kind of run and wander all over the place. I'll leave you with one little closing, amusing moment. Right after the war and the move to London, I live fairly close to Buckingham Palace. And one day my auntie and I, we went out for a walk. We were walking in front of the main entryway to the palace. And it's like every 4 hours, they have a changing of the guard. You got these guys with the big bear hats on and very stout looking. And they walk 2 by 2. 2 are coming and 2 are going. So as you come together, I'm fascinated by these guys, and somehow I got loose from Auntie's hand. And next thing I know, I see myself, I'm standing right in the middle of all 4 of them. And they don't dare speak, and you could kind of see, what the heck are we gonna do now? So someone gave sidestep, and they parted. And my aunt, in her embarrassment, ran over there and got me. We got away. So we left England with a smile. So thank you for your time and patience.
Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Graham?
Oh, no.
I just wanted to know, did you go to New Zealand on your mission?
I did, yes. Yeah, here again, interesting little thing. When I got my mission call, it was for Brisbane, Australia. Went to the mission home, and myself and there were 2 other elders in there. We'd been there about 3 days, and we got called to the Murdoch Travel Agency. We went over there and said, "Brethren, you've been transferred to New Zealand." Why? Apparently we had reached our quota for Australia, and they weren't allowing any more in. So the last minute, boom, New Zealand. That very day I had gone through the Salt Lake Temple, and I thought, what a wonderful experience this is. And there isn't any temple in Australia, but there was one in New Zealand. But I was assigned to the South Island. Hamilton on the North Island is where the temple was. So I didn't get to go to that temple until the end of my mission. And so I did finally make it. But yeah, I love the Kiwi people, Brits, and I was a Brit. So that got me into a few doors that maybe perhaps we wouldn't. They didn't have a great love for the church, because when we went into the country, we said, we want to build chapels, we want to build a temple. And so the church bought some 500 acres of timber up in Hamilton, and they tried to get local labor to help us, and it just wasn't happening. So the church, with the labor missionary program, they went in there, had a sawmill and concrete factory, and we just went right ahead and did it. And then the people finally realized, these Mormons don't fool around. They're serious. So we got our temple, and things went pretty good. Yes. I'm with you. Your ears are burning. They're tired. They've heard enough.
No, it's very.
But anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity, and bombing ain't fun, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm almost as old as you. I was 3 years old when you went on your mission.
Something about that 3.
Yeah. All right. I love these. And so we're going to continue them. Thanks to Brother Barron, and thanks for all of you coming tonight. I can't tell you who will be next on the docket. One of you in here might be the next one asked to talk to us about your personal story. But again, thanks for being here tonight. And if you'd like some refreshments, just walk down the hall towards the kitchen. I'll go open those things up for you. And I went all out with drink. There's some bottles of water that I brought. So anyway, and thanks again, Brother Zabriskie, for recording this and doing it. No more questions for him? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So nice.
That was awesome. And thank you very. You know what? Oh, no, wait. No.
Yeah.
Sister Salmon, should we take a picture of him here for the history?
But I can get one up.
You can come up closer, grab